start the Maamar at 10, but we know that the this week is the holiday of Shavuos, Chag Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. So first of all, I'll bless. I'd like to bless all of you. You should have Kabbalas HaTorah b'simcha b'pnimius. That's the standard blessing given by Chabad. You should have accept the Torah b'simcha, with joy, b'pnimius, that it should become internalized. Maamar also talks about internalizing our faith, because faith can be something that's, well, we're talking to Maamar. Faith can be also something, guy can make Kiddush and then go to the soccer game, or go to the soccer game and then make Kiddush. So it depends, I guess, on the time. And it says in the Pasuk that when Hashem gave the Torah, there was a shofar blowing. Jews all heard a shofar being blown. It says, Kol Gadol v'lo Yasav. It was a great sound. V'lo Yasav could be explained. The Midrash explains v'lo Yasav. Rashi explains it could be v'lo Yasav. It didn't end. Did end. The Midrash gives a few explanations of what it means v'lo Yasav. One of the explanations is, the Midrash says, very interestingly, there was no echo. Did you ever hear that before? Yeah. You ever heard that before? No echo. Everyone knows what an echo is, right? An echo's a cool thing. You stand on a mountain, and you call out to the other mountain, and it calls back to you. You hear it coming back. It doesn't have to be a mountain. It could be a room. It could be anywhere where the
room is enclosed to a place, but when you call, when you talk, you can hear echoes.
Sometimes you could, if the room was big enough, yeah. The sound waves get bounced back at you, and you hear it. Right? I think the whole technology of sonar is based on that, right? Right? So the Midrash says there was no echo. Okay, there was no echo. What does the Midrash mean by the fact that there was no echo? So the Rebbe explains in a Sikha, very deep idea. I'll just tell you over very in short, in a condensed version, what the idea is, that since, as we mentioned last week, the Torah affected a joining of the spiritual and the physical, that before the Torah was given, the physical and the spiritual weren't able to join. There were two separate worlds that didn't join together. And even though it says that our forefathers fulfilled all the mitzvahs, it was like perfume, it dissipated, it didn't have a permanence, it didn't affect the gashmias, the physicality. And what Torah did, what the giving of the Torah did, it was that pivotal point in history of the Jewish people, of the world, where Hashem infused the world with spirituality, with the ability to absorb spirituality and to contain that spirituality, that the spirituality become internalized within it, and now objects could become holy. It says that Yaakov Avinu, he was able to draw down with that whole Maisa, with the sticks, with the sheep, where he put them he put sticks in front of the sheep, and if the sticks were speckled, then the sheep gave birth to speckled sheep, from the Chumash. So explain that he was able to draw down what we draw down by putting on tefillin. But the sticks, afterwards, you throw them in the garbage, because the physicality wasn't able to absorb spirituality. But our tefillin, they become holy. So that's why there was no echo. Because when Hashem spoke, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the Jews heard the divine utterances, the 10 commandments, the 10 utterances. There was a call, there was a huge voice, Hashem's voice. There was no echo. Because the world absorbed that voice. The world absorbed Hashem's words. That was the giving of the Torah. And that, from that time on, the world is able to we're able to bring Kedusha into the world, and that's the purpose of the creation of the world. The purpose of the creation of the world is that Hashem should have a dwelling place in this world, meaning he wants a Jewish people that's going to reveal him here. And he's going to be revealed here, and that's when Mashiach comes. That's why we're all wanting Mashiach, because Hashem's going to be revealed. Right now he's hidden. Right? On the one hand, we say, Hashem Echad, Ushmai Echad. He is one, and his name is one. Ata Kodesh, V'shimcha Kodesh. You are holy, and your name is holy. Hashem Echad, Ushmo Echad. On the other hand, we say, Bayom Ahuya Hashem Echad Ushmo Echad. What is it? We say in the end of Aleinu, on that day, when Mashiach comes, then you will be one, and your name will be one. But we say right now, Hashem Echad Ushmo Echad. He is one with his name. Or who, even a closer union. Who Ushmo Echad. He and his name are one. That's the truth. He and his name are one. So what do we say in the end of Aleinu? On that day you will be one, and your name will be one. If right now he and his name are one, the answer is because it's not revealed that he and his name is one. It's true that he and his name are one. His name, meaning his revelation of himself, is him. Right? This world is the revelation of him. He revealed himself. He created a world, but he hides himself in the world. So the revelation of himself, the world, his name, that's in the world, you don't see how it's one with him. There's not a revelation of a Kodesh Baruch Hu in the world, unless a person learns Torah and it's revealed in his soul, and he feels it in his heart, right? But we don't actually see it with our eyes of flesh. We don't see how everything in the world is all Hashem bringing it into existence at every moment. That's the truth. Because we don't see it. We say, therefore, by Yom Ha'hu, when Mashiach comes, and the truth is going to be revealed, then everyone's going to see how you and your name are one, how there's no fragmentation. Everything is Einod Bovado. There's nothing other than him. Okay, so that's the inyan that I wanted to tell you about Chag HaShavuot, Chag Matan Torah. I'll tell you one more thing about Matan Torah, which has to do with our service to Hashem. And that is that it says, by the splitting of the sea, it says, Hayam Chazar Le'etano. That's the pasuk. When Moshe, after the Jews left the sea and the Mitzrayim were still chasing us in the sea, Moshe Rabbeinu hit with the stick, and Hayam Chazar Le'etano. The sea returned to its former strength. Shalom Aleichem. The sea returned to its former strength. Eitano means its strength. Labriu. The Midrash says, if you take the letters of the word Eitano, and you rearrange them, you get Tna'av, its condition. What's it? It's Tnai, its condition. What was the condition that was made with the sea? It wasn't made just with the sea, but it was made also with the sea. It was made with the entire world. When Hashem created the world, he made a condition with the world. When it says all the days of creation, it says Yom Echad, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi. By Friday, it says Yom Hashishi, the special, the sixth day. That special sixth day, the 6th of Sivan, Hashem said to the world, if the Jews accept Torah, you'll continue to exist. If the Jews don't, you won't continue to exist. So that's what it means when it says Hayam Chazar Le'etano. It returned to its Tnai. It fulfilled its condition to help the Jews receive the Torah, because it didn't want to split. Why do I have to split? It split because that was the purpose of its being created, that the Jews should receive the Torah. That's the purpose of the creation of the world. That by us learning Torah and doing mitzvahs and being a or Lagoy and also spreading out Yiddishkeit to our fellow Jews and to the world at large, we make the world a dwelling place for Hashem. And we are therefore Hashem's partners in creation, in bringing the world to the fruition, to the fulfillment of the original purpose for what it was created. And the Torah gives life to the world, it gives existence to the world, and it is the life of the world. And by connecting to Torah, we're connecting to life itself. So we should all increase in our learning of Torah and fulfilling of our mitzvahs. And Chag HaShavuot, Chag Matan Toraseinu, the holiday of the giving of the Torah, is the time, it's an auspicious time for everyone to increase in Torah study and to be able to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through Torah study. Because we know that the holidays didn't just happen once and that's it, and then now they're a historical event. But the same influences, the same spiritual influences that occurred back then, occur today. And actually that's mentioned in the Maamar, the Kimu Esa Yehudim Asher Echalu La'asos Kiblu V'Kimu. The Jews accepted and fulfilled that which they began to do, that at every holiday the same spiritual revelations occur, and even occur to a certain extent in a greater manner. So last week, so now we're going to continue the mind. Last week we did chapter 1. We explained that a commandment binds together the commander and the one being commanded. And we asked, why did Hashem say to Moshe Rabbeinu, instead of saying you shall command the Bnei Yisrael to bring olive oil, it says, VEATAH TETZAVEH, you should command them. And instead of saying speak to Bnei Yisrael, it says that Moshe should command them as if Moshe is the commander. And that's the point of reference which the Maamar begins to discuss, and chapter 2. Okay, page 339. We asked a number of questions. Now the Rebbe says, we did a little bit of it, that Moshe connects the Jewish people with HaKadosh Baruch Hu through teaching the Jewish people Torah. And not only that, but the Jewish people also can increase or enhance Moshe's own spiritual power. As it says on page 341, this is where we got to, that through the Jewish people who are called the feet of Moshe, Moshe is called the head. The Jewish people is like a body. Every part of the body is important. And every part of the body gets its life from its life force comes to it through the brain. The brain is the command and control center of the entire body. And through the nervous system, all the organs of the body get their life force. And therefore, even the lowest parts of the body are connected to the head. So the Jewish people are called Moshe's feet. And here, the Rebbe gives a very beautiful explanation of the pasuk in Torah where it says, Sheish meot elef ragli ha'am ve'anoichi bekirbo. Here I am in the midst of 600,000 people on foot. So the word anoichi it means here I am. But it also can be explained like we say Anoichi in the beginning of the Ten Commandments. It says Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. And Anoichi, we know that there's different names that Hashem has. And the names are all different manifestations of his revelation. Right? The name Elokim is a lower revelation than the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. The name Elokim is the way Hashem reveals himself in the world, right? And that's why the gematria of Elokim is Teva, the Ha-Teva. It's the same gematria of nature, because it's how Hashem reveals himself through nature. What Mashen came, which is not the case by the Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the Shem Havaya, right? That's the transcendental, the name that reflects Hashem's transcendence beyond limitation. That's Havaya, that's Hashem. And Anoichi, that says Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. Anoichi is a level beyond description. I am who I am. It's a higher than the Shem Havaya. And that pasuk the Rebbe explains, because of the 600,000 Jewish people on foot. Anoichi bekir. Anoichi. What does it say? Anoichi bekirba. Hashem, that level, that manifestation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was drawn down because of the Jewish people. So we see that the Jewish people can also cause an effect in Moshe to elevate Moshe to a higher rung. Now the Rebbe gives an example of a rope where the rope is attached, the lowest part of the rope down here is attached to the higher part up above, right? The lower levels of the soul that are enclosed in a body are connected to the higher levels of the soul that remain above and are beyond the limitations of the body. And like when someone pulls a rope, even if the rope is very, very far away, immediately, as soon as you pull the rope, it creates an effect at the other end. And therefore, we have the ability to also, through our service of Hashem, to elevate Moshe Rabbeinu too. And now, so the Rebbe says, therefore, now we can understand the meaning of the pasuk, because we asked, why did it say in the pasuk that the Jews should bring olive oil to you, Moshe Rabbeinu? It really should say that you should bring it to Aaron, because Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't the one lighting the menorah. Aaron was his brother. So olive oil means it's that which gives illumination. And therefore, by you commanding the Jewish people, right, and you teaching the Jewish people how to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with self-sacrifice, and the Jewish people internalizing the lessons that you teach them and actualizing the lessons that you teach them, by doing that, they're bringing you illumination. They're bringing you olive oil. Okay. Chapter 3. Page 343. To explain the above. In the Maamar, the Kibbutz Yehudim, the Jews accepted. So this was a Maamar given by the previous Rebbe in Soviet Russia, where it was illegal to express your Judaism. There was a decree made by the atheist communist regime to wipe out religion completely, and the Russian Orthodox Church, there's one in Yerushalayim, but the Russian Orthodox community in Russia ceased to exist for that period of time. Talking about a few 100 million people. They just buckled under. It wasn't just against the Jews, it was against religion in general, because communist philosophy was atheist philosophy. Also in China, it's atheist philosophy. And not only did it affect the non-Jews, but it also affected the Jews. Most of the Rabbanim fled Russia. They fled. It's dangerous to be in Russia. They didn't want to be there. The only one who stayed, or the only one, but the one who stayed and said, no, we are going to maintain our Judaism. I'm not going to leave the flock without a shepherd. There were millions of Jews in Russia. And the Russians didn't let anyone leave. You weren't allowed to leave Russia. The Jews were stuck there. Whether they wanted to be there or not, they couldn't leave. So the previous Rebbe told his Hasidim, he made them swear, he made them take a vow. He called them together. He said, we are now in a situation where there is a decree against the Jewish religion. It's a situation where we are required by Torah law to act with self-sacrifice, literal self-sacrifice. Many Hasidim of the Frierdiker Rebbe were murdered by the Russian regime, either shot or just died after they were sent to Siberia. The few that made it out became famous people, and they had many tales to tell, and there's many interesting stories and interesting books that you could read about and read up on that period in Jewish life that wasn't really that long ago. As a matter of fact, they called the Rebbe Rayatz the Rav Mesiras Nefesh, or the Yehudi Mesiras Nefesh. That was how he was termed by the rest of the Jewish world. The rabbi with Mesiras Nefesh. When he came to Eretz Yisrael, the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he got out of Russia, he said, after he got out of Russia, I think so, yeah. He came to Eretz Yisrael before he went to America. Came to Eretz Yisrael twice. Anyway, he came to Eretz Yisrael and met with Rav Kook. And Rav Aryeh Levine, there's a book about Rav Aryeh Levine, a very nice book. Anyone remember the name of it? No? You never read it? Tzaddik in Our Time. Tzaddik in Our Time. He was there. He was a student of Rav Kook. And when he came out of the meeting, he said, "Wow, now I know what Mesiras Nefesh means." So interestingly, I know that story because I read the book of Tzaddik in Our Time, and the author of the book, Rabbi Simcha Raz, he writes that Rav Aryeh Levine was talking about Rav Kook. So it didn't make sense to me. I thought perhaps it was a mistranslation because I read the book in English and it was actually written in Hebrew. I thought it was just translated improperly. So I got my hands on the Hebrew copy, and I saw also in the Hebrew copy it said that after the previous Rebbe, who was known as the Rav Mesiras Nefesh, came out of the meeting with Rav Kook, Rav Aryeh Levine exclaimed, "Wow, now I know what Mesiras Nefesh means. How could it be referring to Rav Kook? Didn't make sense to me." Yeah? So I called Rav Simcha Raz. Because this Frierdiker Rebbe was termed the Rav Ish Mesiras Nefesh. And after the meeting, and he said, "And now I know what Mesiras Nefesh is," it would make sense that he was talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe. So I called Rav Simcha Raz. And I asked him. And he said, well, he must have meant that. Because his Rav was Rav Kook, so he must have been talking about Rav Kook. I said, yeah, but he came out of the meeting with the previous Rebbe, and it wasn't just a meeting with Rav Kook, it was a meeting with the previous Rebbe. So he just said again, he must have meant that. So I understood that that was his opinion. They didn't actually hear that from Rav Aryeh Levine, that's what he meant. It was just his opinion. And I disagree with him. I mean, I agree with this, that Rav Aryeh Levine made the statement, right? Because he wouldn't have written that if Rav Aryeh Levine didn't make the statement. That's not his interpretation of what Rav Aryeh Levine said. But what Aryeh Levine meant, if he didn't actually hear from Aryeh Levine, which he said he didn't, it's just his interpretation and doesn't make sense. It makes sense if he was talking about the previous Rebbe. So the previous Rebbe called his Hasidim together, and he said, "We're gonna make a stand." And ultimately, the light of Torah and mitzvahs was able to conquer the totalitarian regime of Russia and the Jewish. The previous Rebbe, they wanted to kill him. First, they tried to get, they made a whole case against him. They tried to get all kinds of information from his Hasidim. They tortured his Hasidim. They killed his Hasidim. Eventually, they wanted to kill him, but because of Hashem's kindnesses and also the efforts of many people around the world, they then changed their decree against him from death to exile for, I think, 10 years, and then they changed it for short exile and they let him free. There's a lot of, you could read up on it if you're interested in that chapter of Jewish history. So the previous Rebbe talks about Moshe Rabbeinu, and he explains that Moshe Rabbeinu is called the Raya Mehemna. It's what the sages call Moshe Rabbeinu. Every Raya Mehemna means the faithful shepherd. And he says that there are two interpretations of the meaning of a faithful shepherd. One is a shepherd who tends to the needs of his flock, is faithful to the needs of his flock. That's one interpretation. And another interpretation, which is a deeper interpretation, is Shehuzan u'mefarnes et Yisrael be'inyan ha'emunah, that he nurtures the Jewish people's faith. That the Jewish people, we know the Jewish people, or, I was going to say, that he says in the next line, the Jewish people have inherent resources of faith. For the Jews are inherently ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim, believers and the descendants of believers. By virtue of our souls, we have inherent faith. Yet that, in order for that faith to come to the surface, it needs to be nurtured. It needs to be brought. And that is one of the missions of Moshe Rabbeinu. It is, however, possible for this belief to serve merely as an encompassing force, without being internalized within a person's conscious thought processes. Moshe Rabbeinu, however, fosters and nurtures the faith of the Jewish people, enabling them to internalize this potential. And in the comments here, it explains how a faith can be not internalized, and brings the teaching of the sages in Brachas, in the Gemara in Brachas, which you can't find in the Gemaras that we have. But there are Girsaot of Gemaras. It says here in the comment in note 16, it's in the Portuguese edition of the Talmud, and it's also cited in the Ein Yaakov, this story about the thief who calls out to Hashem to help him in his thievery before he breaks in. It's a very interesting type of a thief, because you wouldn't imagine usually a thief is praying to Hashem to help him be successful in his thievery when he knows that Hashem commands us not to steal. It's a stira, it's a contradiction, it's a paradox. And the sages discuss, did we discuss this last week? And the sages discussed this thief. What kind of thief is this? Does he believe in Hashem? Does he not believe in Hashem? And they conclude, yes, he believes in Hashem. How can you know? Because he's praying to Hashem. He believes in Hashem. But his faith is not internalized. It's encompassing. It hasn't affected him. And therefore, it doesn't affect his deeds. But he believes. Like we know, there are many people, they make Kiddush on Friday night, and then they go and they put on the television, or they go to a soccer game. Right? Does it mean that they don't believe the words of Kiddush? That Hashem created the world in 6 days, and in 7 days he rested, and he blesses Hashem? No, he believes. But it hasn't internalized, it hasn't affected his being. Right? Like they say about Thomas Jefferson, who was the author of the Declaration of Independence, right? Where he says that, it's how does it start? He said, how does it start, the Declaration? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with the rights, with inalienable rights. Inalienable meaning no one can take it away. It does not something that a person has the right to take away. They're inalienable. Among those, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of justice, right? And they say, he was a slave owner. Here he was, proclaiming this wonderful declaration, and those words are great words, right? They're actually written on his gravestone. Absolutely great words, right? Great words. and true words too. Yet he was a slave owner. So, although you could go into a whole analysis. He was born the son of a slave owner, and this was the way it was in Virginia. It's all true, but the truth is, right? He was saying one thing and doing another thing, right? And I'm not judging him, okay? But those who are judging him and are saying that it's hypocritical, they're right. Just like the thief is hypocritical. He's davening to Hashem to help him in his thievery, and he's going against Hashem's will. It's hypocritical. It's not hypocritical?
No.
Why not?
You come to compromise. You don't have to be hypocritical. Make compromise.
I don't know. I'm sorry, didn't you?
You make compromise. Are you making all the 613 mitzvahs? Do you sometimes make something wrong?
Yeah, we're all like this.
We are not hypocritical.
Okay.
We compromise.
That's right. The Rosh Yeshiva, when they teach this Gemara, they tell all the Talmidim, don't think that the Talmud is talking about someone else. The Talmud is talking about you, me, right? We're all like that thief. We all proclaim sometimes.
But we are not hypocritical.
No, it is a lack. It is a lack of the internalization of the faith. We have faith that we proclaim, and we have a lack of internalizing it. We're like that thief. We have to try to be authentic and align. We have to, Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson likes to use that word a lot. Align yourself with your true nature. Right? It's so true. Right? We believe what we believe. Now we have to align our thoughts and our speech and our deeds with what we really believe. We have to internalize the faith that we have, that we really believe in. We have to internalize it into our life. That's challenging, because there's a lot of things that happen that challenge it. We have to do it. I haven't making Shabbos. Where you have a light, right? And it's in a cylinder. You've seen these, they have a light inside. And then you turn the top and it's got a little window, it's got a little opening. And you turn the top until the plastic that lets the light out lines up with that opening. And then it gives you a lot of light. And when you want to go to sleep, you just turn it and it's dark. So this is a similar type of thing. We have a soul. And inherently within our soul, the Jews are called believers, the children of believers. We have such a faith. The Baal Shem Tov said that every Jew, when his students question, why does he give such attention to simple Jews, right? We're his Talmidim, we're his students, we're Torah scholars. He should give more attention to us. And the Baal Shem Tov said that in every Jew, it's called, he called the Torah, the Nevi'im, calls the Jewish people Eretz Chayfetz, a desirable land. And he said, just like the greatest minds will never be able to probe the depths that are in the earth, the secrets and the depths of treasures that are in the earth, we cannot grasp the treasures of holiness that are in each and every Jew. And he said, my job, the Baal Shem Tov was talking about himself, is to take the Jewish people and make them produce the type of produce that such a desirable land can produce. To bring each and every Jew to reveal within him who he is, and that he should begin to shine. And this is the job of Moshe Rabbeinu, and the designation of Moshe Rabbeinu as a Raya Mehemna in every generation. It says this: he's pashtusa the Moshe b'kol dara v'dara. The extension of in every generation. For example, Mordechai. For example, the Baal Shem Tov. For example, the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe. These are the Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation. And the job of Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation is to unite the Jewish people with their Father in heaven, and with each other too, and to unite them with their Father in heaven. Yeah. Moshe Rabbeinu fosters and nurtures the faith of the Jewish people, enabling them to internalize this potential. Similar concepts are echoed by the Zohar, which states, this supernal faith will be sustained and nurtured by Moshe. The process of nurturing faith inspired by Moshe involves interning it, making it a part of one's conscious functioning. And then the Maamar of the previous Rebbe continues and says that the designation of Moshe Rabbeinu as a shepherd of faith, as a Raya Mehemna, a faithful shepherd, doesn't apply just to Moshe Rabbeinu. It applies to each and every Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation, the extension of Moshe.
What now?
The Rebbe.
Now?
The Rebbe.
Okay.
In every generation, there are spiritual leaders who will perform the same function as Moshe did in his generation. These are the Roshei Alfei Yisrael. These are the heads of the thousands of the Jewish people in every generation who strengthen the faith of the Jews of their generation, enabling them to internalize their faith. For example, Mordechai served as the extension of Moshe Rabbeinu in his generation. Maamar Zal, as the sages say, Shem Mordechai b'doiroi k'Moshe b'doro. Sages say in Esther Rabbah that Mordechai in his generation was like Moshe in his generation. We know that Moshe in the desert, he delegated responsibilities to other leaders, right? They were the heads of 10, the heads of 50, the heads of 100, the heads of 1,000, and then Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the head of them all. So you have also in the Jewish people, you have rabbis of communities, and you have rabbis of shuls. Let's start from rabbis of small shuls, then rabbis of larger communities, and then you have Rosh Yeshiva, who are accepted by many, many communities, and then you have the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation. And one could argue who that is, but I think it's very clear that it's the one who has the most influence over the Jewish people, and who affects the Jewish people and brings the Jewish people close to their Father in heaven. And to say that the Rebbe is the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation is not to take away from the great work that many, many other Rebbeim do. But there's only one Moshe in every generation. There's heads of thousands, there's heads of hundreds.
How long does the generation last?
It's a very good question. I would say 40 years, because I know that there's an actual. It says that Shimshon Hagibor, Samson, he judged. I'm not sure the exact lashon, but he judged the Jewish people 40 years after his death. He continued to be the leader of the Jewish people. It says that. It's brought that. The sages bring that. So. Yeah. So even in the time of when Haman's decrees, when it was study of the Torah and the observance of its mitzvahs involved Mesiras Nefesh, so Mordechai, we know that the Torah teaches us, Mordechai gathered together the Jewish people, especially the children, and he taught them Torah to strengthen their faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to motivate them to stand strong in the study of Torah and the observance of its mitzvahs. The Alter Rebbe says, he brings in Torah or that if a Jew would have converted out of Judaism, so he wouldn't have been killed by Haman.
By who?
Haman. in the times of Purim.
Different from Hitler.
Why didn't the Pope say? Didn't the Pope say if a Jew converts to Catholicism, Hitler shouldn't kill him?
But Hitler wouldn't mind.
Hitler didn't accept that Pope's decree? No, I don't think any Jews converted to Catholicism anyway. So Mordechai motivated the Jewish people to learn Torah and to remain strong in their faith, even though there was a decree of extermination against them. And the Maamar of the previous Rebbe explains that when the pasuk says that they should bring, the Jewish people should bring oil, katit lema'or, crushed for the luminary, and not crushed to illuminate. That was one of the questions we asked in the beginning of the Maamar. Why does it say that the olive oil should be crushed for the luminary and not crushed to illuminate? It would make more sense to say crushed to illuminate, not to say crushed to the luminary. So the previous Rebbe explains that when someone is crushed, they're able to approach the luminary. When in the era of exile, when there's difficulties and people are broken and pressed, and it's like that now to a certain extent, since we're in a situation of war. But it was certainly like that in the time of Soviet Russia, when there were decrees against the Jewish people for learning Torah and keeping mitzvahs. It was a time of exile, and also in the times when the previous Rebbe was saying this, he was talking about times of Mordechai, times of Haman, the decree of Haman. It was a time of exile, and the Jewish people were broken and pressed, crushed. And then, therefore, when someone's crushed, they're able to rise to a higher level than just the illumination, than just the light, which is that which emanates from the luminary, but they're actually able to rise and connect with the luminary itself, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's essence. As we know, his light emanates from his essence. His light can undergo tzimtzumim, what's the word? How do you say it in English? Tzimtzum.
Restraint.
Self-restraint. So yeah, self-restraint on the power of the illumination. But the luminary, the essence, is unchangeable. Even the light doesn't change, but that's a different discussion. It just appears to those receiving a bit of change, but itself also doesn't change. But the point that the previous Rebbe makes, that the Rebbe brings out over here, is that when a person is in a situation of oppression, so his essence comes out. When his essence comes out, his essence can bind with Hashem's essence. And that's what happened in the times of Purim, and that's what happened in the times of Russia. But the Rebbe leaves us with a question at the end of this chapter. How is Moshe Rabbeinu involved in this? Because it would seem that this is an external factor. True, Moshe Rabbeinu teaches the Jewish people to remain strong and faithful, but how does that enable the faith to be internalized? You know, there's a story that's told that a chassid was leaving Russia, an older chassid and a younger chassid. They were leaving Russia and they were going to America. And the chassid said to the older chassid said to the younger chassid, he said, now we're leaving how did he phrase it? Now we're leaving a land of truth and we're going to a land of falsehood. Falsehood, something similar to that. What he meant to say was that in Russia, we served Hashem with truth.
You served Hashem?
We served Hashem with truth. There was no ulterior motive. It wasn't like someone was going to call you rabbi and give you honor. By serving Hashem, you were committing a capital crime. You were putting your life in serious danger. That if you were caught, you would be imprisoned or killed. You were only doing it because you were a Jew, and because it was now a time when you needed to serve Hashem with Mesiras Nefesh, and that's why you were doing it. You were doing it because you were a Jew, and you were proud to be a Jew, and that's it. There was no ulterior motive, so you were doing it for truthful reasons. He said, now we're going to America, people are going to call you rabbi, they're going to give you honor. Who knows? There's going to be ulterior motives. You're going to a land of falsehood. Be very careful. So, and the fact the Rebbe points out that, not the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe, that there were many Jews who in Russia served Hashem with tremendous Mesiras Nefesh. But when they came to America, you didn't see that Mesiras Nefesh. They still served Hashem. But you didn't see that same Mesiras Nefesh. So, therefore, when there's a decree, and it's because of the decree that the Jew is serving Hashem with Mesiras Nefesh, true, his essence comes to the surface, and he shows who he really is. But when that decree goes away, and he goes back to, maybe being a little lackadaisical, so you can see that his faith wasn't fully internalized. It was because of that external crutching and pressure and oppression that the faith came to the fore. But if it would truly be internalized, then it would continue even afterwards. And that's the job of Moshe Rabbeinu, how to help the Jewish people, how to get the Jewish people to internalize their faith that they're able to actualize all the time. And that's what the Rebbe is going to explain in the beginning of chapter 4. The interpretation of the verse, and you shall command. You, Moshe Rabbeinu, you should command. In the Megillah of Purim, it says, "V'kibela Yehudim asher heichelu la'asot." The Jewish people accepted that which they had begun to do. What does that mean? It means that they accepted at the time of Purim that which they had begun to accept at the time of the giving of the Torah. The b'matan Torah ha'isa hatchala. The giving of the Torah represented merely the beginning. Heichelu la'asot. They began to accept. U'b'mimei Achashverosh. Bisman Gezeres Haman ha'isa ha'kabbalah. But at the time of the Achashverosh, at the time of the decree of Haman, that represented the actual acceptance, the consummate acceptance of the Torah. The Kibel Yehudim. Yalderech Maamar Zal Pasuk Kimu v'Kiblu Yehudim, as it says in the verse, and there's in the Megillah also, the Jews established and accepted. That the sages explain the same way. Kimu Masha Kiblu Kvar. They established what they had already accepted. So what does that mean? What does that mean at Matan Torah we began to accept, but at the time of Achashverosh it was the consummate acceptance, it was the real acceptance. The meaning is that when we said Na'aseh v'nishma, and this is what the Rebbe is going to go on to explain, when we said at Matan Torah Na'aseh v'nishma, we will accept, and then we will understand. In other words, we're going to serve you with Mesiras Nefesh. What does it mean? Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do, and we will understand. Normally, that's illogical, right? Normally, a person wants to understand before they do. You tell someone, I want you to go do something. So if you say, I want you to pass me a cup, you don't really ask too many questions. But if you tell a person, I want you to do something, and it's going to be difficult, and it's going to require a lot of your energy and effort and money, and I want you to do it with self-sacrifice, even if it requires giving up your life. So normally a person can ask, why? Explain to me the reasoning behind why you're commanding me to do this, right? If I understand, if your reasoning accepts, it seems to me to be logical, I'll do it. But if you're telling me to do something and it's illogical, so I'm not going to do it. But the Jewish people, since we're believers and children of believers, and we were witnesses to what occurred in Mitzrayim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu protected us, and he made 10 plagues against the Egyptians, and he took us out with an outstretched arm, with wonders and with miracles, and he brought us to the sea, and the Egyptians chased after us, and he drowned them in the sea, split the sea from us, and now he brings us to the tide. He said, I want to give you something that I've been saving in my treasure chest, that I've been waiting for this moment since I created the world to give to you. I want to give you the Torah. And you know, the Midrash says he offered to other nations of the world. You ever heard that? And he went to Shmuel, and he said, do you want the Torah? And Shmuel said, what does it say?
Don't kill.
Don't steal. To Esav it said, don't kill.
Okay.
And Yishmael, they steal. They steal. It's well known. You can ask the Arabs themselves, they'll tell you.
Cousins.
Huh?
The cousins. The cousins are cousins?
Your
Yeah, the cousins.
Talking about the
Cousins. Yeah, so they, no, come on. That's against our nature, we don't want it. And he went to Esav, don't murder. That's against our nature, we don't want it. He went to the Jewish people. Jewish people didn't ask, what does it say? They said, we'll accept it. Afterwards, we'll understand what it says. So it's, on the one hand, it's illogical. But on the other hand, when you understand who the giver is, and you have a relationship already with the giver of the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the Jewish people had a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were witnesses to the great miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did, and they understood, wow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the creator of the world. He wants to give us the Torah. We want it. Of course we want it. How could we say no? It's not totally illogical, but it is a leap of faith. It is beyond rational thought. And so much so that when they said Nasa v'Nishma, it says 2 crowns were placed on their head, on the head of each Jew, because we prefaced our understanding. We prefaced that we'll accept even before we understand. Since you're giving it to us, we're going to accept it. And we're going to serve you with Mesiras Nefesh. The Jews understood that it's going to require Mesiras Nefesh. Nevertheless, that was only in potential, because the Jews really weren't required to sacrifice their lives at the time of the giving of the Torah. And even though you could ask that it says that Hashem held the mountain over our heads. You heard that? Right. Jewish people were assembled at the bottom of the mountain, and the Midrash says on that pasuk that HaKadosh Baruch Hu held the mountain over our heads and said, you want to accept the Torah, good and fine. If not, I'm going to drop it on you. This will be your end.
That's why he cannot get rid of us. It is the Gemara. If a man takes a woman by force, and they marry, he cannot divorce her.
So he took us by force.
He cannot divorce from us.
So the Alter Rebbe explains, the Midrashim are not always meant to be understood literally. The Rashbam, who was the son of the Rambam, he writes that anyone who says that every Midrash should be understood literally is a fool. And anyone who says that it can't be understood literally is an apikoros. You just have to know when the Midrash is referring to something literally and when the Midrash is teaching you allegorically a lesson. Like, for example, one of the, I think it's the, no, I'm not going to say who it is because I'm not sure. But one of the sages on the Midrash that says that Moshe Rabbeinu, when there was a battle between Og, the king of Bashan, he was a very large human being. And he was very old. He was from the time, what?
Maral of Prague.
The Maral? But you don't even know what I'm about to say.
I know what you're going to say. You
What?
don't have to take literally that he was tall, whatever.
It could be, you're right. It could be just the Maral.
Right.
It could be. That it says that, the Midrash says that Moshe Rabbeinu was 10 amos tall. And amma is from here to here, from the elbow to the here. It's about 1.5 feet. Moshe Rabbeinu was 10 amos tall. That's about 15 feet, right? And he had an axe that was 10 amos long. He had an axe that was 15 feet long. And he jumped in the air 15 feet high. And he struck Og in the ankles. And Og collapsed. It says Og was holding up a mountain to drop on the Bnei Yisrael. And Hashem brought ants to make holes in the mountain. And his teeth got extended and the mountain got stuck on his head. And when Moshe Rabbeinu chopped him at the ankles, he fell down and it broke his neck and he died. Crushed his head. So that's the second Midrash about the ants and the mountain, but the Midrash about the jumping and the axe and the height of Moshe and how hard he jumped and how big the axe was. So according to Yaakov Meir, it was the Maamar of Prague. I think you're correct. Says that he says it's not meant to be taken literally. How does he explain it?
Have the book about all the Midrashim. He says it's nothing to do with the Shabbat.
No, some of them are meant to be taken
Yeah,
literally.
some of it, but he's taking 15, 16 different Midrashim. Well, he said none of this is
Meant to be taken literally.
none of this. Yes, I have.
Right. So I don't remember. It's usually not a good idea to bring up something in a shiur that you can't explain, and I'm sorry that I did because I don't remember the Maharal of Prague's explanation of that. But it has to do with certain dargot, certain levels, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was on a certain level of 10 amos, and he jumped up 10 amos, whatever. But it's meant to be taken allegorically. So the Alter Rebbe says that the Midrash, where Hashem held a mountain over our heads and said that this will be your burial place if you don't accept the Torah, also can be understood allegorically. And what is the message that the Midrash is trying to convey? That the great illumination of love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shined on us. Say shined or shone?
So,
The great illumination of love that we felt from HaKadosh Baruch Hu at that moment when he was giving us the Torah was like a mountain held over our heads. It was like we had no choice to be able to not accept the Torah. It's if the king rescues you from a dungeon, right? And when your life is in danger and now brings you into his palace and clothes you in royal garments and feeds you royal food and showers you with love, how are you not going to accept the king's rule over you? It's not going to happen. So the Alter Rebbe says, therefore it's considered like HaKadosh Baruch Hu forced us. Because
well, he did or he did not.
that's the question. Is it meant to be taken literally or allegorically? You could explain it literally too. There are plenty of sages that explain it literally. Yeah, he held it over our heads and we didn't have a choice. And the Alter Rebbe says, doesn't mean he actually held it over our heads. He illuminated us with so much love and connection that it was like a mountain was held over us because he took away our choice. Either way, it took away our choice. Either way, it influenced our choice. Either way you want to understand it. So the giving of the Torah was a beginning, but the Jews didn't actually have to actualize their Mesiras Nefesh, their acceptance that we will serve you with Mesiras Nefesh, even if it means giving up our life for you. They didn't have to actually actualize that until many, many years later at the time of Purim, when Haman made a decree to exterminate the entire Jewish nation. And then the Jewish people were actually put in a situation where, are we going to remain Jews and serve Hashem, or are we going to opt out and renounce our Judaism? And the Jewish people, Kiblu. It says that the Jewish people established what they had previously accepted. What had they previously accepted? They previously accepted, we will do before we will listen. That was a blanket commitment. It transcended the limits of knowledge. And it was an acceptance, but it was only a potential. But in the days of Achashverosh, they established what they accepted. They showed that it was rooted in the Torah was rooted, and their emunah was rooted in the very core of their beings. And this is what Mordechai was able to instill within the Jewish people. And this is the mission of the Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation, in order to actualize the great potential, the unlimited potential within each and every Jew to serve Hashem in the best possible manner, beyond restraints, beyond limitations. So everyone should have a Chag Shavua Sameach, Chag Matan Torah Sameach, Lekabel et Torah b'simcha u'pnimius, and see you next week after Shavuos.